The assembly hall was buzzing that morning. The air carried the sound of restless students, some whispering, some laughing, others simply waiting for the new face everyone had been whispering about. A new teacher had arrived at Crestwood High, and while most teachers entered quietly into their duties, this one was different. Rumor said she was young, sharp, and had a past no one really understood. Some said she had left a prestigious academy to come here. Others whispered darker things, that she had left her old school because of an incident no one dared to mention too loudly. Whatever the truth was, everyone was waiting to see how she would handle the most dangerous thing in Crestwood High. Not the academics, not the pressure of schedules, but the ruthless bullying culture led by none other than Adrien Blackwell, the principal's son. Adrien was untouchable. Teachers feared him because discipline meant going against his father, and his father never let any punishment land on his only son. Students feared him because he carried the aura of someone who could destroy reputations in a blink, and worse, he had a gang of followers who would carry out his commands without hesitation. For 3 years, he had ruled the school hallways like a king. New teachers often left within weeks, old teachers looked the other way. Students learned to survive in silence, and on that day, when the assembly gathered to welcome the new teacher, Adrien sat in the front row, leaning back in his chair with his usual smirk, daring her to make a mistake. The principal's speech introducing her was dry, filled with words like dedicated, qualified, promising. The students barely listened. What they waited for was her. When she walked onto the stage, the entire hall seemed to shift. She wasn't the kind of woman anyone expected. Tall, with sharp, watchful eyes, her presence carried something quiet but undeniable. She did not rush. She did not stumble. Her footsteps were measured, as though she had already anticipated the weight of hundreds of eyes staring at her. The whispers grew louder. Who was she? Why did she look so calm? Most teachers looked nervous on their first day, especially in front of the whole school. But this one, Miss Alina Hart, looked like she belonged exactly where she was standing. She took her place at the lectern, set her notes aside, and scanned the students. Her gaze didn't flutter nervously. It landed steadily on faces row by row, like a soldier measuring her battlefield. Some students shifted under her stare. Others found themselves holding their breath without knowing why. But Adrien only smiled wider. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his fist, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Good morning," Miss Hart said, her voice carrying clear and steady through the microphone. "I'm not here to give a long speech about myself. I believe you will learn more about me by how I teach and how I listen. But I want to say this: I value respect, and I believe every student in this room deserves it as much as I do." The hall grew quieter than expected. For a brief moment, even Adrien blinked at her words. But then, he leaned back again, signaling with a glance to his friends. They chuckled, already planning mischief. The moment came sooner than anyone expected. As Miss Hart shifted her notes, Adrien suddenly rose from his seat, walked casually to the stage steps, and climbed up. The hall buzzed with whispers. No one had ever interrupted an introduction like this before. He walked straight to the lectern, his smirk bold and mocking, and without hesitation, he shoved it hard. The wooden stand lurched forward with a loud scrape, almost toppling. Miss Hart caught it with quick reflexes, steadying it before it crashed. Gasps echoed around the hall. A teacher moved as if to stop him, but froze under the sharp glance of the principal himself, who was watching from the front row with folded arms. He wasn't going to intervene. He never did. Adrien leaned close to the microphone and laughed, his voice booming across the hall. "Oops. Guess it's not so stable, huh? Welcome to Crestwood, Miss Hart. Better get used to things falling apart here." His friends erupted in laughter from the seats. Some students lowered their heads, too nervous to even breathe. Miss Hart's eyes didn't leave him. She didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't even scold. She simply adjusted the lectern, placed her hand on it, and looked straight at Adrien. Her face was unreadable. Silence began to press around them. Adrien expected her to yell, to threaten detention, maybe even call for the principal's help. That would have given him victory. But instead, she leaned slightly toward him, her voice calm, deliberate, and cold enough to freeze the air. 5 words, just 5 words. "You don't scare me, Adrien." The words echoed through the microphone. The laughter from his gang cut short, swallowed into silence. The students stared wide-eyed. No one in 3 years had ever spoken to Adrien like that. Teachers avoided confrontation, students avoided eye contact. But here, in front of the entire school, Miss Hart had looked him in the eye and told him the one truth no one dared to say aloud. Adrien froze. His smirk faltered. For the first time, his hand twitched uncertainly at his side. Something flickered in his eyes. Something he quickly tried to mask with another forced chuckle. But the hall had already seen it. They had seen him hesitate. Miss Hart didn't move her gaze. "Now," she said smoothly, as though nothing unusual had happened, "please take your seat. We're beginning." And with that, she turned her attention back to the students, her calm composure unshaken. The power in the hall had shifted. Students exchanged glances, shocked. Some mouths hung open. Adrien, the untouchable king, had been checked, and not with force, but with 5 words that cut deeper than any threat. As Adrien slowly walked back to his seat, trying to act unbothered, everyone noticed the tightness in his jaw, the way his fists clenched just slightly. He wasn't used to being challenged. He wasn't used to losing control. And in that moment, every student knew one thing. This was only the beginning.